All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. And today's shir is going to be in honor of Esther Gitlin lost her father yesterday. Did you know that? Esther Gitlin, the other Rebbetzin here in our shul. Yes. So, Reuven ben Moshe. Today's shir will be, I think their funeral is happening in a few hours. So we're going to do the shir in his honor and wishing Esther and her family a lot of strength and a lot of koach. And also in honor of Yaakov ben Sivya and Sarah bas Sipporah Malka. If anybody has anyone to add on for Tehillim? Yeromachai Vivian.
And Lilan Bracha Batshem.
Okay, amen. Okay, so we'll have that in mind as we say Tehillim today. And the merit of our learning, our learning should go up for everyone to be a Melitz Yosher, which means a good advocate. And for those in Shemayim, it should help them reach higher heights. Lametzech Mizmor LeDavid Yancha Dinah B'Yom Tzara Yisagefcha Hashem Elhei Yaakov Yishlach Ezrecha Mikodesh U'Mitzin Yisadecha Yiskar Kol Mechasecha Balaski Yidash Nesela Yitin Lecha Chalavecha V'Chol Atzaska Yimale Mirana B'Shuasecha U'V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgol Yimalei Adonai Kol Mashalasecha Ati Adati Ki Yoshi Adonai Mishicho Yanir Mishmei Kodsha B'Gvuras Yesha Yamino Ela V'Recha Ve'ela Basusim V'Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naskir Hema Karav V'Nafol V'Anachnu Kamnu V'Nisadad. Let's say together, Adonai Hoshia HaMelech Yanenu B'Yom Karenu. Good morning, Esther. Good morning, Helga. Good morning, Lynn. Good morning, Lauren, Arlene. I think we have some Tehillim here. Let's see. Shoshana Basara, Devara Bas Rezo, Rachel Bas Vega. Okay, if you want to put anyone else's names down. Hi, good morning, Lilia. Okay, so last week we finished chapter 4. Now, for those of you who weren't here for chapter 4, I'm going to do like a little review because in order to get into chapter 5, you really have to have the backing of chapter 4. Just yesterday I was thinking, if I would have learned Tanya the way I'm learning it now, okay, remember, if I'm preparing Tanya, I'll have to read it and learn it for many, many hours, right? I would have been such a better wife, mother, friend. So much of Tanya literally realigns your whole brain. We were learning last week about the levushim, the garments of the soul. What are they? The 3 levushim, the 3 garments of the soul. Okay, so Chachmir Dat is part of the Sfirot, right. But then the Sfirot are our inners, right. But then we have the clothing that reflects that. What's the clothing? Your thought, speech, and action. Those are called the garments. Why? Because the garments come on, right? I walked in with a jacket. I took it off. They go on and off. But there's something that's powerful that I want to start off with today. Garments, you are in control of your garments. At every moment of the day, you could take the jacket on, you can put the jacket off, right? You're putting on a spring jacket, you go outside, it's freezing, it's 5 degrees. You run back in, you put on winter coat. You are in charge. What you're not in charge of is the weather outside. Let's take that, make it personalize that. I am in charge of what I think, say, and do. I am not in charge of how I feel, what my emotions are. Do you know how liberating that is? Do you know how liberating it is? No. Okay, for example, if you don't like somebody, they just, someone at your workplace or someone in your building, you don't like them. And you're upset that you don't like them. And you think about it and they make you nervous and they make you uncomfortable and you can't stand them. And you make sure that when you walk in the street, you don't look at them. And when their mail comes, you make sure, because there's something about it. Either they did something to you, but sometimes it bothers you. Why can't I get over that? Guess what? This is what's liberating. The fact that there's something between you and that person, it could be a family member that you can't get rid of. Family members are you're stuck with, right?
Mm-hmm.
A sister-in-law, a nephew, something. And you begin to feel so down on yourself. What's with me? Guess what? You're not responsible for that. The only thing you're responsible for is your action, your speech, and your thought about them. In other words, we did the test last week. We did it online. We did it with our class here. I told everyone to think of a multiplication thing.
That was the best thing you've ever done, and I've given that information out about 5 times this week. It works.
It works. It's okay. We'll do it again right now here, and everyone here watching. Okay, and Yona Baschaya. I want you now to close your eyes for 30 seconds. Just do a multiplication, either 2 or 4. Let's go. Okay, what were you thinking about the last 30 seconds?
Multiplication.
How is that possible? There are so many other things going on in your life. How was it you were just thinking about multiplication?
You focused on it. You directed it.
I focused on it. You focused on it because I directed you. Our mind can be totally refocused at any day of the minute, any minute of the day. So if you are getting an uncomfortable feeling, a negative feeling, you know is coming from the nefesh Bahamid, and you don't want to go there because you're learning Tanya, and you're aware that your thoughts are your levushim, and you don't want to walk around with stained levushim, torn levushim. But you say, what can I do? I'm not in control of my thoughts. Tanya says, yes, yes, yes. You're absolutely in charge of your thoughts, and any minute of the day, just snap out of it. And even if it goes on 60 to 100 times a day, eventually, this is the beauty, eventually it'll come down to 40 times a day, 30 times a day, and soon we are training our machshava to snap out of it because it's an exercise. It's a muscle that we are working on. We're teaching the muscle of our brain to snap out of things that we are unhappy with. Mm-hmm. And when we are sucked into a negative thought, it brings negative speech, which brings to negative action, because that's what thoughts does. Our levushim are all interconnected, and the machshava clothing of ours is so subtle, and it's so sometimes insidious that we don't realize that we start talking lashon hara. Because when you're thinking for 20 minutes about something negative that just happened, the person that calls you on the phone says, "How you doing? And what are you doing now?" You're going to say, "You won't believe who's driving me crazy. You cannot imagine what I'm going through with the so-and-so." Why? It started with the thoughts, went down. And then it comes into the mail at the door that you just throw on the floor. So it becomes sport, thought, speech, and action. So literally, if we nip it in the bud with our machshava, it will hopefully translate into our words and our thoughts. So that's a big chunk of chapter 4. Another part of chapter 4 is talking about the difference between the nefesh habahamis and nefesh elokis. And this is important for us to understand because all of us have these both nefashot. We wake up every morning, we know there's going to be a struggle. So let me ask you, and I'm asking you, hi Corinne, nice to see you. Hi Barbara. You tell me in one word, what is a nefesh habahamit? And give me a description of it. So for someone who never learned Tanya, how would you tell them, with very simple words, what is a nefesh habahamit? Impulsive.
Can I tell you how I explain it to people?
Yeah.
There's these cartoons when we were younger, and we used to watch this person, and then all of a sudden there was these 2 little things pop up on the side, poof, and then there would be one the devil and one the angel with the thing on the head, and each one of them is telling them to do something else. One side is telling you, no, go and steal this thing, and then this one is saying, no, you have to do something that's with all your heart. And so that's how I explain Tanya to people. Right. Dealing with this.
It's so visual and dealing with the struggle. Okay.
I think how I explain
yeah.
it's to teach you how to. Right. That's what I feel.
That's what you feel. Okay? And everyone?
You asking what's the nefesh b'hem?
Yeah, the difference between Nefesh Bahamas and Nefesh
It's
Elokis. Yeah. Or if, like Shelley just said the difference. You said the Nefesh Bahamas is impulsive, which means the Nefesh Elokis is, say in Hebrew?
Thoughtful.
Yeah.
Thoughtful.
Okay.
Okay.
Like you think before you act. Like you have to, what you say to your kids.
Yeah.
Before you want to act.
Okay, so Nefesh Elokis. Okay, so let me tell you how the Alter Rebbe and Tanya tells us the difference. The Nefesh Bahamas is all about selfish, self-aggrandization, self-preservation, self-fulfillment. By the way, that's the big buzzword of our generation. Self-fulfillment. It's all about self, the Nefesh Bahamas. What's Nefesh Elokis?
Everyone else.
It's not about you, but I'm going to take it a step further. Nefesh Elokis is about bittul. You know what bittul means? Self-annihilation. Now that could sound very, very, what? You should die? Is that what Nefesh Elokis is? And no, it means you're edging God out, getting rid of your ego, because bittul is the opposite of ego. You edging God out, and you bring Hashem into your life. I mean, because ego is getting God out. Bittul means bringing Hashem in. My life is around God, which makes me less impulsive, which makes me thoughtful, which makes me think about others, which makes me not. Self-fulfillment is very good. But if it's all about me, I am right now doing yoga. I need to fulfill myself. Get out of the room. I don't care that you're not feeling good. Get out of the room. It's about me right now. How pleasant is yoga if that's what it's become, right? Or you could say, I need yoga because I need to center myself. I need to relax. I want to be a healthier mother. I want to be calm. Give me a few minutes, right? Like my Bubby say, Ich mach a mama. She would say, I'm going to take a rest because I'm making a mother. What do you mean? You need to rest. Yoga for many people is about, being able to focus, to breathe in, breathe out, right? It's all about the child's pose, right? It's all about relaxing, but for what purpose? So you can walk around saying, I'm a yoga professional, or because you want to take that strength and have more patience for your family, for others. So it's not like I'm not eating anymore. That's selfish. Really? If you can't eat, you can't do your mitzvahs in this world. You can't fulfill your purpose on this world. So how can we say eating is self? But everything that we do, all the actions that we do is all about who's the drive behind it. I'm going to work. Why? So I can make a lot of money and have lots of power and have lots of things. I'm making money so I can raise my family and pay my rent and send them to a Jewish school and give tzedakah. Both are going to work. Both are getting jobs. But what's the motor? And I think that's really how we have to wake up in the morning and think about our day. What's my motor? What's driving me? I'm going to have my nails done. I spoke to a young mother yesterday who said, I have 3 kids home. I was going out of my mind. I just had to get a break. I went to get my nails done, right? She wasn't going, she got these gorgeous fingernails so she could put them all over Instagram, look at my thing. She went because that half hour fit her soul.
It used to be half an hour, now it's half a day. I went for the first time like years.
Yeah.
And it took
Depends where you go. Depends where you go.
Terry and I used to go to New York for 2 days.
I know. Oh, I hope you're going to continue doing that.
Yes,
Oh.
we've been doing it for 50 years.
Okay. So it depends what's the drive behind the manicure. And that really should be today's title. What drives you to get your manicure? Is it because you just need to have that glorious fashion statement? Or is it making you feel calmer? It's making you feel like a beautiful wife, a beautiful balabusta, a beautiful, right? You go into a wedding, a simcha. So this is how, as a Jew, we live our life. Yes, like Shelley said, there's a little Yetzer Hara pops up on this side, the Yetzer Hara pops on that side. Who are we going to listen to? Sometimes it's the same action, but what's the drive? But what I said before really, it resonates with me because sometimes you get a thought, and even if you learned to shoo it out, it bothers you. What kind of person am I? I mean, this sister-in-law or this brother-in-law has been in my family for 15, 20 years. Why do I still have that? Throw that out of your mind. Dismiss it. Don't beat yourself up for being such a bad person, because Hashem doesn't um, doesn't expect us to have all these perfect emotions. Why? Only a tzaddik. Only a tzaddik v'tovlo and a tzaddik. Only a tzaddik will have perfectly pure emotions. Now, does that make you feel a little bit relieved? Or not so much? It makes, I don't know. It works for me. For me, it's like about, I just keep saying, okay, so I'm not a tzaddik. I'm trying to be a Beinoni. So
it's okay to have emotions, but just learn how to control them.
It's not even okay. It's human. It's human. What do you mean it's okay? It is human to have these feelings, but what's going to drive the action, the nefesh elokis, the nefesh Bahamas, that's in your ballpark. Okay, so that's that. Now, one of the things that we're going to learn about in Perek Hay is talking about how we can perfect and become better. That our emotions should more than normally be godly emotions, right? So we just said we're not, hi, good morning, Natalie. So we said we're not to have a whole day of proper emotions, but we spoke about a few times the last few weeks. We spoke about how can you improve your emotions. We said what you put in is, so if you want to bake challah and you have gluten-free family members coming over and you put in whole wheat bread, will you be shocked that you have a whole wheat challah and you can't serve it to your guests? No. Hello. You put in the whole wheat bread. You put in the whole wheat flour. You want gluten-free? Go to the health food store, pick up the special flour. Then you are comfortable presenting it as a gluten-free challah. Don't be surprised that what we put in is what comes out, whether it's a smoothie, whether it's a cake, and whether it's our actions. So if I'm asking you to give me an example of gluten-free flour, but in a spiritual way, what would that mean to you?
I think it's also your surroundings, like the people you surround yourself with. Because when we lived in the other area, I mentioned, we lived, when I sit down in the park, it was mostly non-religious people, not Jewish people. And the conversations are not the conversation that you have with another Jewish person. But now, the only times I meet people now, it's when I'm around Jewish people. And I think the conversations are better. So your thoughts is less about
very interesting. We do a brides and grooms class, my husband and I. And we had Evelyn. Did you speak to it? Yeah, did they join it? We had such a gorgeous couple, Evelyn's son and daughter-in-law, future daughter-in-law. So we have all these brides and grooms coming, and we were talking about, how do we speak about spouses? And there are there was one girl, one of the brides said to me, she was sitting with a bunch of friends, and suddenly they were married, and suddenly all started like putting down their husbands. Maybe it was a joke, maybe it wasn't, but they were just laughing. Oh, you think your husband's a brat? You know what my husband does? And they were just laughing. Oh, your husband. And she felt so uncomfortable. She just got up and walked away. She goes, I cannot hang around that. I can't allow those words, even though she says, I didn't say those words, but those words entered into my heart, entered into my mind, because I'm allowing that. That's the gluten-free flour that I'm allowing to enter my soul.
But it's also easy. It's like get married. Before you get married, your spouse is like,
oh, exactly, right, yeah.
And then you live with the person for 10 years, 12 years. You have kids.
40 years almost.
There's lots of a lot more. And then like the little people.
You have to wait that long. Because we're angels.
Yeah.
Oh, because we're angels.
The person being a bad person. It's just something so
just going the mama looks so funny.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta sit down
But
and
I don't
talk.
write nothing,
Okay.
but I just
But we have to realize that, yes, that might seem very easy and nice, but we have to realize that there is damage with talking about a spouse in a negative light. We mentioned this 2 or 3 weeks ago, that the words that we say, it was actually my Shabbos shir, the words you say have an effect on the person you speak about, and they leave a stain on that person. We know that 3 people suffer from Lashon Hara. The person that said it, clearly, he gets a sin. The person who listened also gets a sin because they should have stood up and walked away or changed the subject. But the person that was spoken about, what do they deserve to have? They don't deserve. But what's happening is, it's the reality. If someone spoke negatively about that person, unfortunately, even though they are innocent because they weren't even part of the it leaves a stain. So think about it. We sometimes say a little Lashon Hara about our children. We sometimes talk a little bit of Lashon Hara about our spouse, about our parents. And what we did was we sent them a gift called a stain. They opened up the envelope, and instead of a beautiful card, out popped up a stain, a schmutz, and it stays with them. Now, one woman said, my child sometimes really makes me crazy. And I feel like when I'm sitting around a bunch of women and I just share his outbursts, his tantrums, it's cathartic for me. And I said, nice. But just remember, you're leaving a stain. She goes, so I can never speak about my child? I said, of course you could, but in the context of getting help. So if you're 10 friends and everyone's just throwing out things about your spouses, that's not getting help. But if you sit down with a good friend that you share something with, and your friend keeps quiet, you could say, listen, Lily, I'm really struggling with something, and you're a good friend. Maybe you can help me hash this out. Then you got it off your chest, like Shelley's saying. You got it off your chest, but it wasn't Lashon Hara. It wasn't gossip. Then you helped yourself, but you also helped your husband from not getting schmutz. Because if we want to have better spouses, do I want to keep adding schmutz on him? That's not going to help me. That's going to just make it worse. If I want my child to get better, do I want to keep throwing schmutz on my child? Parents do this all the time. We don't realize the effect of our words. That's why learning Torah, that's why learning Chassidus is so impactful. It makes us stop and think, wait, my machshava diva ma'aser are going to affect not only me, they're affecting my children. If I want holy,
the light that other people see your children after, and your husband, you walk
how
into a
beautiful!
place, you walk into a place, and all these girls you're
Yeah.
talking with, now they look at your husband. Oh, this is the guy she was talking to.
I love that, Rivka. I love that. So look how much we have to think about. Where maybe our machshava is a little bit of a negative thought, and we're angry at our spouse that did something, and not my spouse, of course. And we think, and then we say, okay, I'm going to share this with everyone. There are Instagram posts, there are movies and TVs that are just trashing family members, but they don't have a Torah. Those people don't have a Torah, and we can't look at them. We have to delete them from any of our social media. We don't even want to hear this schmutz, because everything you put in, my friends, becomes absorbed in you and becomes the you. You know the story about the 2 Bachrim that were out on the Tzayim on Friday, and they were putting on tefillin with with people in Manhattan, and they stopped someone and they said, are you Chabad? Are you Jewish? And the guy said to them, oh, are you Chabad? And they go, yes. And he goes, I hate Chabad. And the boys are like, oh, why? What did we do to you? He goes, it's not what you did to me. He says, but when I was a kid, a teenager, my parents just arrived from Poland. We needed a school. And the first yeshiva they found was Yeshiva Slobodach. It was in Bedford-Stuyvesant then. Like you're talking about in the 50s, 60s. It was in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And my parents lived nearby, and I went. He goes, I wasn't religious. I'm not religious. But you know what Chabad did to me? Every time I sin, I can't enjoy it. You've taken the joy out of every sin I want to do. The boys go, why? He says, because what you know, you can never unknow. What you hear, my friends, we can never unhear. What we see, we can never unsee. That is why social media is so impactful today. Mothers are giving their children phones at the ages of 12, 13, 14, thinking that I can trust them. You know those friends, or I can trust them. Sweetie pie, you can trust them. But when they have the internet, it's much more powerful than you, and they're lured into things that they can see. They're watching pornography at an age where they're way, way too young to be exposed to anything like this. But once they've seen it, my friends, you can't take it out. People that are married with people that are addicted to pornography, and I've spoken to some of these wives, their husbands are in therapy for 8, 10 years. They still can't cleanse out what the things that they've seen. So when the Abish tells us, when Hashem says, watch your eyes, guard your eyes, it's not because Hashem is a fanatic and he's telling us, oh, you Jews, put on blinders. No, he's protecting our neshamas so that these thoughts don't come back. I once heard of a friend who told me that either it's her husband or someone she knows that wears very high level glasses when he walks in the street during the summer. So you shouldn't see things that are not appropriate for a man to see. And he literally walks like half blind. And she goes, I know why a stick.
Say just
She says, I know it's fanatic. It wasn't her husband. It was someone that she knows. She goes, I know it sounds fanatic, but this man wants to watch what he sees. That's a pure level. Is it our level? I don't know. It's not my level. But I definitely cannot laugh at people that take such precautions to watch what they're seeing, to protect what they're hearing, to listen to sit down with people at parties or at wine, drinks, whatever, with people that that only nice things will come out. Actually, Esther was telling me that her daughter was here the last Shabbos after Pesach. And, on Shabbos and Shul, we have a thing that we have after the Kiddush, the men have their Farbrengen. The women used to sit around and talk. Not anymore. We now have, I make a copy of a powerful thought, something from some beautiful book, and the women and teenage girls sit around the table. We all read it, and literally sometimes for a half hour, 45 minutes, we are discussing. It could be a piece of Tanya, it could be something from the Rebbe Sicha, a Torah thought, and we break it down so everyone at the table, even these 14-year-old girls, are coming up with something that connects. And instead of sitting for 45 minutes and just talking shtuyot, we are now talking Torah, becoming better people. And Esther's daughter said, in my shul in New York, afterwards the men are bringing and the women are just chit-chatting. And she says, I'm going to make a copy and we're going to start doing that because we don't want to just.
We do a kiddush for everybody. It's like an hour and a half, and then the rabbi talk, the rebbitzin talk, and
because that elevates the Shabbos.
Yes.
So when people laugh, it's usually the neshama be'amit because they don't. They're. It's not the neshama be'amit. It's the neshama elokit, and the neshama elokit is saying to them, "This is what you're supposed to do." Right? And the only thing that comes out of them is a laugh or to make fun of someone because then they're just not able.
You're saying the cynical?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the Nefesh Bahamas is doing that, right?
Or it's in the only way that the person can really, someone, I can give you an example. I'm sorry that I know this is late, but.
No, go ahead.
So my husband comes from a place, it's a kibbutz, right? And so kibbutz that on Yom Kippur, they would eat pork on Yom Kippur. That's how they. So that's the way that he grew up. Not anymore, but that's the way he grew up. Okay, yeah. And so when he would tell to his friends the things that he would do, right? They would look at him and say, "You're crazy." And then all of a sudden, these friends would call him up now and say, "Oh my God, you were so right." And that's what I'm saying is that sometimes
he would tell them the godly things he was doing.
Yes.
And then they would laugh back.
Yes, yes. So it was saying, so now that they're realizing that that's the way to go, right, is pretty much how I see it is the Neshama Elokit is saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Don't laugh at that, right? But that's the only way of them really be able to take it out and brush it off, right? So.
And it's very interesting what you're saying. Right when we moved here, so we used to do, we were young, I was 20, my husband was 23. So first thing we started to break into the community, we used to do shiurim in houses, rotating houses. And there was one man that literally was so cynical.
Mhm.
Like everything we said, and came to the point that we wished he would never show up. But his wife was very,
What is cynical? Like giggle?
Like, they make fun of it.
yeah, they
everything.
laugh. They laugh. Like actually in Tehillim, Perak Aleph, King David says over here, "Asher ish asher lo lach ba'asas v'shav, u'v'derech hatam lo amad, v'moshev leitzim lo yashav." He says, "Fortunate is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked,
Uh-huh.
nor stood in the path of the sinners, nor sat in the company of scoffers."
Right.
Chapter 1 of Tehillim.
Mhm.
So it's like a
Nor
scoffer, right?
No, for-
And anyway, so every week was like Wednesday night, and every week was like, is he going to come? Is he going to come? This went on for months and months and months, and he always came. His wife was growing, and he laughed. Though I was growing, he laughed. And then one Wednesday night, we were talking. Someone in the class was growing and growing and growing, and a new person said, what's the big deal about Jewish education? Like, why waste money for Jewish school? And this man gets up and he goes, "Do you know how important Jewish schools are? Do you know the influence that?" And my husband and I are like, what's his name? Like the whole room was, he scoffed and scoffed and scoffed for months, and then the Nefesh Elokis just wrapped itself around it, and today the man is a observed man with generations of Jewish, religious, beautiful children, shluchim on their own right. How did that happen? Because it was first they had to push it off. So but that's the beauty about Torah. You teach it, and you can never unknow it.
Right.
So sometimes we say, "Oh, I'm going to teach my grandchildren," but what their parents do in their home is totally opposite. Don't discredit anything, any Jewish book, any Jewish song, any Jewish video. Just fill it in, because you're filling up the Nefesh Elokis. And as like what happened to your husband's friends, as the child gets older, everything that you put in, all that gluten flour you put in, it's going to produce a gluten-free challah. Because whatever goes in has to come out.
Mm-hmm. My boys went to Sunday school. I never forced them to go. I said, "You guys want to go? You go." And for 3 years, I played for Sunday school, and I said they only learned the Aleph until Chet, like for 3 years. And I'm like, okay, maybe one day something's gonna come out of it. And then we moved from North Park to Finton Young area, and I said, like, okay, so now we need to move to a new public school. So they're like, no, mommy, I think this year we should go to Hebrew school. And that's only from that once a week for like maybe 20 weeks a year to go to Hebrew school. Yeah,
Great.
it was their choice. I never forced it on them. And my husband never opened in his life Tanya. I studied Tanya. And now he has his own Tanya at home.
It's the little things. It's just the little, the consistent drops. Look,
Yeah.
we're now in Sfiras Omer, where Rabbi Akiva's students died. We know, unfortunately, because of the Sinas Chinam. But we talk a lot about Rabbi Akiva. One of the things about Rabbi Akiva was at the age of 40, he started learning. And he sat in a grade 1, and then he went up to grade 3, and then he went up to grade 6, and then he became the Rabbi Akiva that till today we all talk about him. And he gave the analogy that it was drop on a rock, one drop, until the rock actually gets a curve inside and has an intonation, because one little thing makes a difference. So we should never underestimate what we're giving our children and our grandchildren, and we think they're not listening. They're listening. My granddaughters came for Shabbos to the house. They slept over. So when I put them to sleep, I do the Shema Yisrael that I did with my children. And my grandchildren sing the exact same Shema with the ending. We have a whole ending that I did with my children in Yiddish. And there's my grandchildren rattling that off, because what do my daughters know? What I taught them. What do their children know? What their mommy's teaching them, right? So it's and the women, we have it all in our power. So that's today's shiur of Tanya. Thanks for joining.